Hey everybody, this is Praying Medic. It is Friday, January 11th, and this is my Q update for today. Those of you who are following it along at home, you can find Q posts at a number of different websites, including qmap.pub, qanon.pub. If you have an Android phone, you want the apps to get Q notifications, you can get Q drops and Q alerts in the Play Store. My theme for this series is Boom Friday. And I get to go over to another page because Twitter thought it would be funny to break my thread between the first and second tweets. So if you're looking for this thread on my Twitter page, just realize tweet number 1 is separated from the rest of the thread. I'd like to start out Boom Threads with a little John Lee hooker. We have this post from Q this morning at 1:19. That would be Arizona time. Boom, 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 boom. When Q drops booms, we don't necessarily know what that means. Sometimes we do. Q will say, with these booms, there's been a lot of them in the past. Sometimes Q will say, big week next week, things of that nature. This is just simple booms with no explanation, so we don't know what's really going on. Could be some news coming in the future, could be something that was released recently. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I think the booms are related to an article that was written by Jeff at the Markets Work, Jeff Carlin. He writes on Epoch Times. He was given an exclusive look at Lisa Page's closed-door congressional testimony. Someone apparently leaked the transcript to him, and he wrote a very long but very good article on Lisa Page's congressional testimony, which I think brings things into the light that have been hidden in darkness for a while. I would definitely, think it's worth your time to check it out if you have the ability to find this article and read it. Transcripts of Lisa Page's closed-door testimonies. Like I said, it's on the Epoch Times. It's a long article. It took me about an hour to read and digest this morning. I'm going to go through some of the things that Jeff put in this document, not all of them, just things that I think are interesting and good to know about. So it seems as though former CIA Chief John Brennan had the Steele dossier in August of 2016, and he used it to force an investigation of Donald Trump by probably showing it to Harry Reid, or at least giving Harry Reid the information that was in it. Now, in her congressional hearing, there was a question put to Lisa Page that showed that Brennan and Comey seemed to know about the dossier, but Page herself denied knowing if Brennan had a copy of it. After a little back and forth, one of the congressional representatives is kind of summarizing what he knows and what Lisa Page has said. So you give a brief on August 25th. Director Brennan is also giving a brief. It's not a Gang of 8 brief, it's a one-on-one. From what we can tell, a one-on-one briefing with Harry Reid at that point. And it becomes apparent based on your text messages and based on Director Comey's emails that you all are aware that this conversation took place. This is the conversation that Brennan had with Harry Reid. Were you aware that Director Brennan had a briefing with Harry Reid and that you expected a letter from Harry Reid? Page noted that she remembered the letter sent by Reid, but seemed confused as to Brennan's involvement and possible knowledge of the Steele dossier. She reiterates that point again, Page, and this is a quote from her. As of August 2016, I did not know who Christopher Steele is. I don't know that he's an FBI source. I don't know what he does. I've never heard of him in all of my life. That's interesting because Steele was actually an FBI asset for quite a few years. So let me just sort of be clear. When the FBI first receives the reports that are known as the dossier from the FBI agent, who is Christopher Steele's handler, in September of 2016 at that time, we do not know who, we don't know why these reports have been generated, we don't know for what purpose. Personally, I'm just going to go off here on my own observations. I think some of Page's testimony is a bit incredulous. I think she is painting a story here to protect herself and some of her friends in the FBI. A bit later in the discussion, the representative asked another question. So you don't know whether it's a coordinated effort to get you those documents or not at this point in September. Page responds, coordinated by whom, sir? And the representative responds, anybody other than a confidential human source saying, listen, I've got reason to be concerned and bring it to you. It could be coordinated by the CIA. It could have been coordinated by Fusion GPS. You don't know. So a representative here is suggesting that this information coming from Christopher Steele was being fed to the FBI. Someone was trying to get it into their hands to open an investigation. It wasn't an organic thing. The representative is suggesting that it was contrived. By reading Lisa Page and Peter Strzok's text messages and by interviewing them, members of Congress know a lot more about the origin of Spygate than a lot of people understand. They have a lot of information that is not public knowledge. Someone in Congress wants us, average people, to know some of what they know. That is why they leaked the transcript of Page's testimony. Why did a white hat in Congress or the intelligence community leak this transcript to Jeff Carlson? This transcript could have been leaked to anyone. Could have been leaked to John Solomon, Sarah Carter. Could have been leaked to just about anybody. But it was leaked to someone, Jeff Carlson, who knows as much about Spygate as anyone. Carlson is my go-to resource for everything related to FISA. He's written a lot of good articles on that subject, and I've posted them on my Twitter threads in the past. Unlike a lot of reporters and political commentators, Carlson believes that the deep state has not gotten the best of the president. And although he is not a Q follower, he is not a Q hater. Jeff and I actually chat back and forth from time to time. We share information. I often hit him up for links to articles and things that I'm researching. He posted this the other night on Twitter. I've never used the words trust a plan. If by that you mean that I believe that President Trump actually knows what he's doing, is not simply powerless and isolated on a political island, then sure, I trust real Donald Trump and I trust his judgment. I believe he was given the transcript because the president and his white hats in the intelligence community and Congress knew that he would use it to advance the narrative that they need us to understand, and that is the fact that the crimes of the Obama cabinet and staff are known and they're going to be prosecuted. All right. Lisa Page was questioned as to what she knew about CIA Director Brennan's briefing to the White House on the FBI's investigation Crossfire Hurricane. This is kind of a big deal because if it can be proven that the White House was running, steering, or being given information on this investigation into Trump, that puts Obama in a very difficult spot. And people that are close to Obama are trying to put out fires and suggestions that Obama knew about and was running this operation. We have text messages from Strzok and Page essentially saying that the White House is running it. In this exchange, a congressional representative asked Page a question about her knowledge of Brennan and whether he had the Steele dossier. Page and whether Brennan briefed the White House. Now we know Brennan did brief the White House. He said that he did. And this is early on in the investigation. Page said this, Sir, I would be shocked. I would truly be stunned to discover that Director of CIA Brennan had briefed the President on the substance of our investigation or even the existence of our investigation. I can't say it didn't happen, I wasn't there, but I would be stunned to discover that. So, Brennan says he did brief President Obama on the FBI's investigation of Trump. Lisa Page, who was involved in the investigation, says she wasn't aware that Brennan had any information about their investigation and certainly didn't know that Brennan briefed the White House about it. Christopher Steele was officially fired as an FBI source for leaking information to the media. Steele continued providing information to those who were investigating Donald Trump. through Associate Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr. We have articles for both of those, pretty well documented. Apparently, Christopher Steele had an FBI handler named Michael Gaeta, and this is something that came out in this testimony. When the FBI first receives reports that are known as the dossier from an FBI agent who is Christopher Steele's handler in September of 2016, at that time, we do not know who, we don't know why these reports have been generated. Steele's handler is almost certainly Michael Gaeta, head of the FBI's Eurasian Crime Squad. So that is another thing that came out of this. Now, we're going to switch gears and talk about John P. Carlin, former Department of Justice National Security Director. John P. Carlin is a mysterious figure in this whole Trump-Russia investigation and what we call Spygate. He actually signed off on the annual FISA compliance certification. I believe it was at the end of August. It might have been September 2016. The day after he signed off on FISA compliance certification, he quit his job. He was gone. And that is very interesting because Admiral Rogers had uncovered a lot of discrepancies and a lot of shenanigans going on with respect to the FISA system, and they weren't going to be able to pin it on Carlin because he left. So Q, back in June, dropped this post, D-Class, LP, Lisa Page, Viva la Resistance. This was a text message that was found from Lisa Page. Viva with an A versus Viva with an E, J space C, brackets. Why classified by Intelcom at the highest level? Define title, define role with Mueller. Exchange shelters a very senior member. All right, so Lisa Page was on Mueller's team. J, we kind of decoded this J_C as John P. Carlin, JPC. A very high-level person in the DOJ. He had the title, and I believe that someone was sheltering Carlin from any kind of exposure as being involved in this whole thing. Well, Lisa Page said that John Carlin, he's in the Department of Justice now, was being kept up to date on the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation through Andrew McCabe. Sometimes directly from McCabe, sometimes through George Toscas. Toscas was one step below John Carlin. This is Lisa Page talking about the FBI investigation. I do know that at least John Carlin, for example, who was a political appointee, was kept abreast of the sort of investigative activity that was going on. And the reason I know that is because whenever there was a conflict between us and the DOJ, FBI, John might call over to John Carlin, might call over to Andy McCabe and sort of make his team's pitch, and then Andy would, sort of the back and forth would go on. All right, so Page basically confirms that Carlin was definitely in on what was happening. In fact, a lot of people in the Department of Justice were being informed about what was going on with the FBI's investigation into Trump. I'll get to that in just a minute. It created a lot of problems for the FBI. Confirming Q's assertion that Carlin was being protected, the transcript shows a congressional staffer attempting to downplay Carlin's involvement after Page just talked about Carlin and him being briefed by Andrew McCabe. I'm just going to read part of this section here. In response to a question asking who was McCabe's direct counterpart at the DOJ on the investigation, Page responded it would have been John. It was either John Carlin or George Toscas who would have reached out to McCabe. Now, Jeff Carlson notes here, the congressional staffer who was doing this particular line of questioning seemed to attempt to mitigate the information that was just revealed by Page. He says, numerous witnesses have confirmed to us that Toscas, a career prosecutor, was in charge of the day-to-day operation of DOJ on this investigation, and that Carlin and other political folks above him had briefings, certainly so they had knowledge, but they didn't have any input in the investigation. So it seems like this congressional staffer was trying to cover for Carlin and trying to minimize his involvement. which Q has suggested that Carlin is being shielded for some reason. Despite the recent assessment by FBI Director Chris Wray that China presents the most serious threat to the U.S., certainly in terms of cyber terrorism and national security, Lisa Page said that she felt Russia was the real threat. She was quoted here saying, "Russia poses the greatest threat, certainly to Western ideals, of any of our foreign adversaries, and we have vast foreign adversaries. But even the threats that are posed by China or by Iran and North Korea or others don't speak to the sort of core Western democracy," right? Well, it's interesting because a lot of people, I think, that live in that little fishbowl in Washington, D.C., who have been trained to think that Russia is the big threat. But actually, Russia isn't the big threat. All right, switching gears, Mike Cortan. Mike Cortan's role in Spygate has been unknown, at least to us. He was FBI Assistant Director of Public Affairs. Page testified that both Cortan and McCabe authorized FBI leaks to the press. This is an exchange that's very interesting. Page said she was authorized by Mike Cortan to leak information to the press. The member of Congress was asking why Cortan wasn't mentioned in the Inspector General's report. And then Page says, "I agree with you that it's curious. There is no reference in the IG report at all to Mr. Cortan, particularly in light of what I reported, which is that both interactions with the reporter were done with Mr. Cortan in coordination with Mr. Cortan and with Mr. Cortan at my side. So I can't explain why there is no reference to Mr. Cortan in any testimony, if he did give any in the IG report." So that is very interesting that Cortan doesn't appear in the IG report as someone involved in the leaks, but Page says he definitely was involved. He actually authorized some of the leaking to the press. So did Andrew McCabe. An email from Peter Strzok discussed a FISA application referred to by the code name Dragon. When she was asked about that, she said she could not discuss it in an unclassified setting. Background information. This is an article from John Solomon, who talks about the Dragon FISA email header, and it seems to refer to a surveillance request that was part of another investigation, and that investigation was codenamed Dragon, and that was also related to the Trump-Russia investigation. All right. In September, Q suggested that there was panic in D.C. because Loretta Lynch and Rod Rosenstein were teaming up and talking to investigators to try to save themselves. It seemed like DOJ personnel had allied themselves against FBI personnel, that it might be Rosenstein and Loretta Lynch teaming up against Andrew McCabe and Jim Comey. Lisa Page's testimony seems to confirm that there was definitely a line that was drawn between the FBI and the DOJ. In fact, in her testimony, Lisa Page said all the major decisions about how the FBI's investigation was going to be handled were all made by the DOJ. The DOJ, she says, dictated who was going to be interviewed, who was going to be prosecuted, and for what. They made all the decisions. She protested pretty loudly, saying that they were all pretty upset that the DOJ was running everything. I mean, FBI was tasked with interviewing people and gathering the information and writing the reports, but that she says the DOJ was really running the show. The question is, did the DOJ actually run the operation, or was Page throwing them under the bus to save her FBI friends? I don't think we've heard the end of this yet, but it is cool that we're getting more information. Lisa Page testified that she traveled abroad only once while working for Andrew McCabe, and that was in December of 2016 with Peter Strzok and 3 unnamed individuals, and that was to London. Our theory is that she went there to gather intel on Trump's people with the help of British intelligence. One individual that Page specified as not being part of the trip was Bill Priestat, FBI's head of counterintelligence. Lisa Page confirmed that she went to London in December of 2016. Well, we have known that for some time. Q first posted pictures of Lisa Page and Peter Strzok in London last February. This picture here we've done some digging on. If you zoom in, you can see here's a male figure here and here's a female figure here. And gosh, that female figure looks a lot like Lisa Page. So, again, good confirmation. If you're interested in getting some more information on Spygate, Jeff Carlson, themarketswork.com has tons and tons of good information. He's got information on FISA. He has written some very good articles on John Brennan's role in Spygate. Wrote a nice article, Spygate, The True Story of Collusion. It includes a large infographic, and he has a lot of sections in that article on the different players and what their roles were as far as he can discern from the information that's available. All right, again, we're going to shift gears. This is a post from Q this morning. It's a picture of an airport terminal in China, and Q writes, "Waiting VIP arrival. What senior U.S. official is arriving in China? Purpose? Q." All right. So lots of interesting theories on that. First thing I like to do with these pictures, Q has posted airport pictures from China before, and it's always worth spending a little bit of time looking into them. This is a blown up section of that picture, and you can see there is, it looks like gate 2A and 2C. And I did a little search and found a picture, and this is from Shanghai's Pudong Airport. And again, you've got gates 2A and 2C. And I believe this is the same terminal, so I mean, Q kind of told us where they were at, but I'd like to just confirm it independently. All right. There were lots of guesses about who that VIP is that was coming into China this morning. The guesses include members of the delegation that had just visited China for trade negotiations. The problem is those trade talks ended on Wednesday, and that delegation is likely home already. And Q posted this morning at, I think, around 3:30. And Q asked, who is arriving today? Well, and it's a U.S. Senior member. So I did a lot of searching. I spent a good hour searching this morning for news articles and any information on anyone significant that was traveling to China today. I couldn't find anything, nothing. So my guess is that the American VIP is traveling covertly. We're not supposed to know who that person is right now. I'm guessing we're going to hear about it at a later date. And if that is true, Q will probably drop a little news story that has to do with somebody having talks in China, and he'll go, hey, future proves past. So I think we get to look forward to that. On January 6th, Q posted this long post about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, her views on a lot of different things that have to do with gender. And Q put her initials in brackets, signifying a kill box. You can just hit up your favorite search engine to find out what a kill box is. It's not what you think it is. This week, for the first time in 25 years, Ginsburg missed arguments for the Supreme Court due to her illness. Just a coincidence that Q posted about her the day before it happened. In March of this last year, Q posted about Red Castle and Green Castle. Clock activated, stage 5:5. All right. We all know now that 5x5 is airman terms for loud and clear. Clock activated, in my mind, simply means that a program has launched, something has started, it's begun, and a plan is moving forward. Red Castle, Green Castle. Back in March, I took a guess when this post came out, March 23rd. You can see this is my old thread from March 23rd. My guess was that the Army Corps of Engineers have a red castle as their symbol, and that maybe, and we had been talking, Q had been talking about the border wall, and so we just guessed that maybe Trump was planning to build the border wall using the Defense Department money and the Corps of Engineers. And then Green Castle, same deal. We were able to find out that Putnam County Army Corps of Engineers in Indiana is located in Green Castle, Indiana. So Q then posted this dropped from Ruth Bader Ginsburg and said, "At what point is it mathematically impossible?" The very next day after this Q post, Ruth Bader Ginsburg doesn't show up for court. They're Green Castle, Red Castle. Yesterday, the president announced that he has directed the Army Corps of Engineers to look at ways to fund and build the southern border wall. All right, how did Q know about those things in advance? If Q is some idiotic LARP on 8chan who doesn't have any inside information, how is Q predicting these things before they happen? During Justice Kavanaugh's confirmation hearing, Q posted a link to a video where Nancy Pelosi explained to the press how politicians need their help to smear their mutual enemies. I'll let you listen to this video.
You demonize, and then we call it the wrap-up smear. If you want to talk politics, you call it the wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this, so they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic.
Then Q posted this: if a woman is selected as a nominee, this is for Supreme Court to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, does that eliminate the wrap-up smear regarding sexual assault? What other tactics might be planned to block and or force the name removal? The person would then be forced to withdraw their nomination. Why is the Senate important? Who controls the Senate? 5347. Enjoy the show. Q. A couple of Anons gave some answers. They could accuse her of racism, anti-choice, religious zealot, other character assassination, read projection tactics. This Anon went a little bit more into it. They can go after her husband, other male family member. They can claim she protected a sexual predator. They can also claim she slept her way into certain positions. What other tactics might be planned to block and or force removal? Claims that she is pro-life, will overturn Roe versus Wade for religious reasons. In short, attack her religion. Kamala Harris attacked the Trump judicial appointment because that person was a Catholic, happened to be a member of the Knights of Columbus, and she just went kind of ballistic on that guy. Amy Coney Barrett was on the previous list of possible Supreme Court nominees, which Judge Kavanaugh actually came from. She is still, considered a possible nomination to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg. A journalist wrote in this article how it's likely that people in the Senate would attack her because of her faith, because of her, maybe personal views on abortion. So there are a lot of things they can attack a female candidate for. But just as they did with Justice Kavanaugh, the attacks by the Wiley County Democrats are probably going to backfire. Whoever Trump nominates to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whenever that happens, that person is a virtual lock due to Republican control of the Senate, which confirms all nominations. Who controls the Senate? Republicans have majority 53-47. Enjoy the show. Q. So be encouraged, patriots. Keep us in prayer. Keep Q and the team in prayer. Keep the president in prayer. Thank you for your support. Thank you for sharing this on social media. That is all I have for you on this update. This is Paramedic signing off. I will catch you on the next broadcast.